As we get kicked off here, I want to say a special thank you to our helping agencies from across the state. I know we've got a number of different fire departments here as part of different task forces that go and help cities during emergencies. I know that for sure we have the city of McKinney here, the city of Allen, and also the city of Fort Worth, who have all brought assets that are part of the Texas Division of Emergency Management resources that are applied to disasters across the state. But these are the departments that are housing these apparatus and equipment, and they have sent their own personnel here to help us during our time of need. So I really wanted to express my appreciation to them. I know there are probably others from other departments that are here as well. I apologize to them for not knowing them, but I did meet those good people from those other cities over at the Incident Command Center, so we're very grateful for that. We're going to have a number of people give you an update on what's going on in their specific areas of expertise, and then we're going to do a Q&A session. So we're going to have Max Dunlap, our Director of Emergency Management. We're also going to have Director of Public Works, or Assistant Director of Public Works, Alan Harder. Wes Reeves from Excel Energy is going to talk about power reconnections and other things that are going on with Excel. APD Chief, Amarillo Police Department Chief Martin Birkenfeld is here as well as our Director of Capital Project Development Engineering, Kyle Sneederjohn, and our Fire Department representative is Chief Mason, I believe. Chief, is that correct? Yep. And then we also have our Director of Animal Management, Victoria Medley. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Max Dunlap. Max.
Afternoon, everyone. Just do a brief update. There is some subject matter experts that will be briefing you all on some of the other specific operations. But I did want to talk about some of the ISTAT, the disaster and damage assessments. So at this time, we have 442 completed damage assessments, with a portion of those being fully destroyed. So we are continuing to work in our operations to address that. We are working with our volunteer organizations, the VOADs, volunteer organizations active in disaster. We are working with all of them to bring in as many resources as possible. We're continuing to work with the Red Cross to ensure that they are helping as best they can. They are continuing the shelter operations today. Currently in the shelter, we have 73 people, with about 4 families going home today. So as we push forward through this and continue to close those borders in around Lawrence Lake, we will continue to push that out in a safe, timely fashion of getting folks back in their homes as quickly as possible. Again, safety is the first and primary of all this. We don't want to put people in unsafe positions, so bear with us. We continue to ensure all citizens who were affected that they get the help that they need. We're working with our state and federal partners the best we can to ensure that we're getting all the resources we can for the time being of what our disaster is. With that, I will pass that over to Chief Birkenfeld with Amarillo Police Department.
Thank you, Max. The Amarillo Police Department continues to provide security and other support at the disaster locations. I just want to say a quick thank you to all of our community for the outstanding level of cooperation that we've had. We've really had very few problems with people going into the areas that they shouldn't be in, and so I want to thank everybody for doing that. We're going to continue to move barricades as the water level recedes, which it has done in the past 24 hours. We'll move barricades as much as possible to allow the greatest amount of access as possible. But in the meantime, we continue to ask everyone to do not drive into water and do not drive around the barricades. There's a reason that they're there. As we've seen over the last few days, there's a lot of underwater hazards that are still unidentified. So please cooperate with that. The police department continues to maintain a presence at the command center. We do have the ability to help folks if there's medication needs, for example. A person up until 3 o'clock today can go to the Home Depot. We'll have police officers, firefighters available to help escort folks if they have an emergency that they need to get some supplies. So we ask that you check in there and we can help get that done. We've done that numerous times over the last few days, helped folks get urgent supplies that they need. And so there is a way to get access in there. We have large trucks that we can bring folks in to a safe route, help make sure they get in there and get back out. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chief Mason from the Amarillo Fire Department. Good afternoon, Brandon Mason, Deputy Chief, Amarillo Fire Department. Just want to give you guys a brief update. We've got 327 rescues that have been completed through this time, 98 pets, and 113 retrievals. As you can imagine, during the course of this time, most of our focus is being transitioned to the retrieval side more so than the rescue, based on everything that's happened so far. Mr. Miller alluded to the outside resources that we've got here in town. I can go through a brief list of those. Strike Team 115 consists of Porter, North County, Stafford, Essex, New Waverly, Timber Lakes, and South County. The Strike Team 117, that's going to be McKinney, Bonham, Allen, Groesbeck, Fort Worth, and McKinney. As you can imagine, during this time, the outpouring from the community has been immense. We've got the community partners like United that have allowed us to keep our command unit on scene and run operations out of there, even at the disruption to their business. But again, these folks have had a great outpouring to support our efforts. Thank y'all.
Good afternoon, Alan Harder, Assistant Director of Public Works. I just want to give you all an update on the current status of pumping operations from our lakes, as well as the next steps for the Public Works Department as we begin to see water receding in the areas around specifically Lawrence Lake and Bennett Lake. Bennett Lake pump was started on Saturday morning, and all city pumps have been running since that time. TxDOT did complete installation of their additional pump at Lawrence Lake on Friday evening, and it also has been running since that time. They also finished installation of a pump on the south side of Playa 7. I won't speak for them on their plan or schedule for that pump, but I do know that it was running yesterday evening when I observed it. We're seeing noticeable changes in the water elevation in the places that had the worst flooding around Lawrence and Bennett Lakes. Our engineering department is currently working on estimates for when the water around those lakes will recede back into the actual boundary of the lake. However, that cannot account for any additional rainfall that we may have. As we all know, any more rainfall just continues to add to the level of the lake, which increases the time it takes to get that pump down. We're currently working with OEM the Office of Emergency Management, to identify ways to clean up debris that's been deposited by the flooding. And I just wanted to say one more thing. As residents are beginning to take flood damaged items out of their homes, I wanted to remind them that they can contact the Solid Waste Department at 378-6813 to schedule a curbside collection where those items will be collected and disposed of. Thanks. At this time, I'll ask Wes Reeves from Excel Energy to come up.
Good afternoon. I've updated most of you earlier today or last evening, but we've got really good news about the power situation in Lawrence Park, and all but 169 customers have had their power restored, and that happened over the weekend. And so I'll explain a little bit about what they've been doing. Of course, I mentioned Friday that we would be going out with inspectors to look at the neighborhoods and the blocks, and we had some terrific cooperation from the city of Amarillo and all the agencies involved, and we worked together on this to identify customers we could bring on Saturday and again on Sunday. At this time, the main feeder lines are operational, so we basically turned the switch back on. So as you recall, Thursday we had de-energized 3 of the circuits coming out of Lawrence Park, and then we're able to kind of work from the outside in. So we currently, with the 169 customers still out, they primarily would be in a certain apartment block, the Oak Ridge apartment area. So all eyes remain on those folks there and their needs. We'll continue working with the city and the authorities to make sure, as we are able to bring on more power, that it's safe. So we're going through and seeing where water has infiltrated, and safety has always been our top concern here. So really the effort is ongoing, but we're pleased that the businesses in the area can get back to normal and the residents could get back in. So we really appreciate everyone's patience with that. But that's my update for today anyway, so thank you. And now I believe Victoria Medley from Transit is going to update you.
That's actually with Animal Management and Welfare. Oh, sorry. So I wanted to just kind of give an overview of what's been going on with animal management during this event. Animal Management has had field officers stage at the relief locations 24/7 to assist with rescue and removal of animals in the evacuation zone. As of 7 p.m. Sunday, 98 animals have been rescued. We also are currently providing kennels, animal care items, vaccinations, food to animal owners at the Red Cross station. We have a member of our staff staged at the Red Cross Center 24/7 also. To provide, we need to make sure and provide any support for those people who have been displaced and have their animals. We currently have 27 animals at the shelter, at the Red Cross shelter that is being, we have reached out to Texas Tech School of Veterinary Medicine, who will be at the shelter today, at the Red Cross shelter, to provide veterinary care for those animals and just give them a once-over to make sure they're all vaccinated, microchipped, for those people who are unfortunately at that shelter. We've also, our shelter itself has remained open to the public during this event. Temporary kennels were set up for to house any of the animals that were recovered during the flooding event. We've also reached out to local and national rescue organizations for assistance. We did see an increase during the actual event, and the AMW facility and staff there has provided care for 357 animals during the event. So I just really want to thank the community. They've reached out. We've gotten donations. It's been really hard on the animals and their owners. And so the staff from the Red Cross, Public Health, and to our field officers who are there 24/7, just want to appreciate and know that they're out there, and that's going to be a little bit longer experience for everyone involved. Oh, and I want to introduce Janelle with VOAD.
Hello. We officially closed down the Multi-Agency Resource Center at 7 o'clock Friday evening. We will be doing an assessment as the week continues and people return to their home to determine if another one is needed. But at this time, we have set up a disaster fast track with all of our agencies' information through 211. There's information in there for any citizen that was affected by the flooding, for things such as transportation, as you're looking for temporary transportation and getting things back to normal. We also have replacement of clothing and household goods, possible rehousing if that is needed, the food, if you're needing food, or replacement of your SNAP benefits. We also have many organizations we're still working with as people return to their homes that are ready to be boots on the ground and help you come in and clean. Pretty much all the information that you've been given through this press conference, we have a record in there that you can call and get that information and get directly sent there. And all you need to do is call 211, choose option 1 to speak with local information and referral, or you can go onto 211texas.org and chat with the representative 24/7. More resources are being gathered as we continue to move people back in and start the long-term recovery process. And in that case, those will be added as they are solidified. Thank you.
All right, we're going to bring our panelists back out. If you have any questions for an individual panel member, now is the time. We'll bring them all back out. Okay, we'll just go down the row if you want to, Michael.
Well, I had a question for Wes. I noticed today there was a lot of trucks around 77th Avenue and right outside the city limits. Is power being restored to some of that area as well?
I don't have an update on that neighborhood. I know that we've been sending operations teams in to see what's been happening there, and I know that's just outside of the city limits, but a lot of similar situations in that area too, with standing water and some homes infiltrated. So we'll be looking that over to make sure that, again, that everything is safe in order to continue electric service, but that'll be decisions to be made yet.
And then my only other question would be to this gentleman. About if we don't get much more rain, is there a time frame for the people around Lawrence Lake where they could probably all be back in their homes?
So that's something our engineering department is working on the numbers for that, of how long we expect it to take for some of that water to recede. And that'll be, kind of depends on the area. Some areas where the water will recede first, others that are at the lower elevations where it will recede last. But that information will be available later.
Devin?
I was gonna ask, I don't know who can answer it, but what was the total number of people and animals that were rescued? I don't know who.
327 people and 98 pets.
327. Okay. And then I think this was for Alan. What is the status of the pumps now? And then also, what shape were they in, as well as the playas before we had that rain last night?
Sure, so we'll put more information together about the status of all of the lakes before we had any rains. As of right now, though, all of the pump stations are currently running, as well as the temporary pump that we have at Playa 7.
Was last night a setback, if at all?
I wouldn't say it was a significant setback. I mean, obviously, it did put some more rainfall in. I was out driving during the rain event because obviously I'm very nervous about it. I didn't notice a significant amount of water in any of the gutters, and our engineering department goes out daily to take elevations of these lakes. I've received that survey data this morning. I haven't looked at it to see what change, if any, that made to the lakes. But I didn't see a significant amount of water going into any of the lakes last night, just from what I looked at.
Okay. And then the status of all of the pumps, I guess, if you could give me a rough outline on, like, I guess what it's looking like.
Yeah, so we're in the same situation we were Friday, and again, all the pumps in the pump stations are currently running. We know with the pumps, as hard as we're running them, there could always be mechanical failure, and we're prepared if that happens to bring in temporary pumps to hook them up and continue dewatering the lakes. But right now, they're all running as they should be.
Okay. So,
Noah, any questions?
I guess this one is mostly for Miller. I know this disaster is still ongoing, but we also, I know, have the budgeting process coming up pretty quickly. Is city staff making preparations about what to learn from this disaster in order to make recommendations for the budgeting process?
Yeah, we'll be working with mayor and council, getting options, things for them to consider, and guidance for them to give on how we need to move forward to plan to be more resilient for this type of thing in the future. We'll be talking about different federal and state grant resources that we can leverage to try and bring in outside money to increase our resiliency, to increase our ability to withstand a rain event without flooding, or without this type of flooding, certainly. So we'll be going over all that, presenting it to council, taking what guidance we can. It's pretty short fuse and short, there's not a lot of time to be able to put a lot of plans in place for this upcoming budget year, but whatever we can, we will discuss with council. We have a lot of work being placed on our finance and budget functions right now, because in addition to preparing the budget, they're also tracking a lot of different expenses, working with the community to track their expenses as well, because we need to have a very, very accurate accounting of what we're spending, the time we're spending, the resources we're using, so that we can be in the best position possible to, one, report accurately to the state and to FEMA, but also then to qualify for additional resources, both in assistance now, but also in future grants. So, but finance can handle all that. They're handling the emergency response, but they're also still working full tilt on trying to get ready for budget and the budget workshops with council.
Jackie?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the work that you're doing. I know this has been a rolling sort of process, so I'll just say that first off. Secondly, we are hearing concerns from people who are saying that, who knows how rumors get started, but are there any fatalities that are associated with this flooding event?
I can speak from the police perspective. We have not investigated any. We did have the one person that was in the lake. The results are not in on any of the investigation on that, but that's the only fatality even closely associated with this that I know of.
And no update on the toxicology report from that person?
No, ma'am, we don't have anything yet.
Thank you very much. Secondly, I would just ask if we have a total estimate of the amount of space that was flooded. Was it a square mile? How could we put that into perspective for people who are asking, honestly, from across the state and the nation?
Most in new developments in the city, most grids are laid out on a mile grid system. So if we're thinking from I-40 to 28th, or Mockingbird, from Georgia to Western, that's about a mile. So it was quite a large area that was initially affected.
So roughly a mile in that area, and then 77th and around that area, maybe a little less, or? I'm sorry to ask you to do math.
No. got a little bit of sleep, but it is slightly less in the 77th area. I don't have the exact number on that one, but that area is slightly less, but just as much affected.
I'd like to also ask about our trash efforts. That's something that I think a lot of people have noticed that has been washed up. A lot of trash around the playas, a lot of trash in the neighborhoods. What is the plan moving forward with that? I know, Mayor Stanley, you've asked some community groups to pitch in and to help out with that. What's the plan for the cleanup?
Sure, I can speak to that one. So we had a meeting last Friday with a group of volunteers. Terrific meeting. Keep Amarillo Clean showed up. We had some Rotary Club volunteers that represent Boy Scouts of America, other Rotaries that are out there. We had a gentleman that represents the athletic community in different teams and sports. So we have several different people that are willing to get involved. And what we've come up with is the safest place for us to start is Meta Park. And so this coming Saturday, 9 a.m., we're hoping to be done around 12. We'll meet a group of volunteers over there at 9th and Wallace, right there at the north end of the park. We'll start there. The city will provide gloves, bags, grabbers, and we will just take an army of people down through that ravine all the way back past the lake area and up into the field if we need to. But we feel like this is an opportunity with these elevated floodwaters, bringing all of that trash up to the surface. Hopefully the wind will start blowing here and drying this out with some heat, but it'll push everything to the north side of some of these lakes. And then I'm believing that staff is gonna handle most everything that would be a hazard, so we're not asking any community members to go get around T-Anchor or Lawrence Lake. But then our next one would be next Saturday, not this coming Saturday, but the following Saturday, we'll go do McDonald Lake, and that one will be a heavy lift. So we're gonna try to target different groups of volunteers, not the same ones every time. But then our goal would be to start an initiative that starts with these different lakes, and then to try to keep something that is a keep it clean Amarillo, and allow us to focus on other areas of our population where we can take volunteers and keep them plugged in.
So maybe in the next 3-4 weeks, we can have those groups going out to different lakes, and we'll trust that you guys will help us get the word out that people can volunteer and help on those various weekends.
Yes, ma'am. So we will, through our communications department, continue to put out flyers. We'll also put social up, and then we'll just target different communities that we feel like are willing to help, and we'll give them the ask. We've already had a few sponsors step up to, sponsor some water and coffee on Saturday morning for our volunteers, and then it'll just be a team effort. The more of us we get out there, the faster we'll finish. So my goal would be to just keep marching every Saturday along the way. We'll have a few holidays there that'll kind of throw us off, but by the end of summer, I think we can make it all the way around town.
Thank you, Mr. My last question, and I'll say that I promise, because I know I'm the one who's asking all of these. But with our water situation, I know that we do get a lot of our municipal water from Lake Meredith. And I know much of the runoff is going there from all our area, not just here in the city, but other areas of the High Plains that has been flooded. What's our long-term plan to deal with that and to make sure that our water is safe for people to drink, and how are we planning to handle that? Thank you, Floyd.
Floyd Hartman, Assistant City Manager. So yes, it is a blessing for Lake Meredith to be rising as far as water supply for over 500,000 people, including Lubbock. That is a positive outcome with the rains, and it continues to be. So over recent history, Lake Meredith is above those recent highs, not historical highs, but the recent highs, and it continues to fill. And as we see rain in the watershed, you'll see that. But it has multiple benefits. The chloride situation, as you probably have heard in other meetings, it'll lower those chlorides with the mix. Hopefully, and so it can extend for decades the ability of the lake to provide water. As you remember, through 2012 and 11, 13, the lake went to historic lows. And so if you looked at the history of the lake, that occurred over decades. So this will put us back in a position for looking at a decade plus of water from the lake. Now that won't eliminate our need to supply that water through mixing to get those chlorides down and the wells that we have. Any other part of your question that I didn't answer?
Do you feel like we're prepared to do that and to deal with the runoff from all of these various areas?
Oh yeah, The runoff is typical runoff that you would see under these scenarios. The Lake Meredith doesn't fill unless there's a flood. We don't see that in normal rainfalls that would. So we haven't seen anything unusual, chloride still being the number one concern. Nothing unusual out of that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mitchell?
Yeah, I had a question for Mayor Stanley. I know we're not completely through this yet, but so far, what's your reaction to the response to this disaster? How do you think that response has gone?
So let me brag for just a second on our best response yet. And I don't know that our community fully realizes how difficult and heavy a lift this is, but our partner Excel, along with our building safety department, has put in a tremendous effort of working hand in hand, not only with each other, but with our community members. So these are property owners, property owners and residents that their power was de-energized. And so we've had to go through and not only look at, is it safe to turn the power back on because of the water, but what other issues did we have there from a construction aspect? And so that's one area that we really could have gotten hung up where if we weren't working together, we wouldn't have had the efficiency of getting this power turned back on. We would have had a lot of upset residents and citizens that were frustrated once the water receded. So very, very pleased up to this point with our building safety department. Chief Inspector on Electrical over there is a guy named Van Dryden. And I don't know how many hours he's put in, but he's been hands-on the whole time. And also Chief Scholes. The other thing that I've seen is we've seen a really good, it's reactive still because you can't be proactive in a lot of these situations, but all of the partners across the state of Texas and us marshaling everybody together and having an incident command center that's functioned well, Red Cross, to be able to relocate all of these people. If you've ever tried to move your grandmother, you realize just moving one person that may not really want to leave can be difficult. For us to relocate over 350 quickly and safely says a lot to who we have on the team and the ability that we have within the city of Amarillo.
Okay, and then another question that was asked a little bit further down the road earlier is, how you might address these issues in the upcoming budget. I know the Vision 2045 is currently underway. Is this something that may be considered in that plan process? And this is for either one of you, I guess, who's involved in that.
So I won't speak to 2045. We could let our city manager speak to that. But then from where we stand as elected representatives, we need to go backwards. And so we've spent the last 3 weeks getting updated and educated on not only how many pumps we have, but where they go first, where they go next, how efficient this system is, where the deficiencies are in it. And then we need to study what previous councils have proposed that maybe we as citizens didn't fund, or that staff hasn't had the funding to do. And so right now we have an opportunity to go back. We do need to do a full evaluation. We need to see where we've been, what worked and what didn't. And then I think we need to take a look at what could be done better. Some of this is just Mother Nature, and I definitely am not an engineer. I'm not going to tell you at what floodplain level we are at, but we're not at the 100-year floodplain anymore. My guess would be we're somewhere between a 200 and a 300-year floodplain if you accumulate this event. And so we're fighting uphill and upstream on this. However, being prepared for the next event has everything to do with prioritizing infrastructure, which is what this council that got elected said they would prioritize. And so I'm interested to see this council do what we said we would do and prioritize infrastructure to make sure that we're as prepared as we possibly can be for the next event.
MJ?
I don't know if this will be for Alan or for Mayor Stanley. I got a few questions for you. One is, what is the maintenance schedule of the pumps and the playas? I mean, how often do we check on them?
Sure, so I can't tell you exactly it's this many hours or this many days. There is a routine maintenance schedule, and we have staff that's assigned to that. They do everything from running them during times where we have a prolonged period without rainfall to ensure that they're operable, to oiling them. Sometimes, though, with stormwater pumps, they're operating in an environment with, as we see now, a lot of debris, a lot of trash. And just over their life, they're going to fail. Generally, that is in the pump itself, not necessarily the motor or the things that are accessible and maintained. But there is a maintenance schedule, and our crews do a good job of keeping up with that.
One of the things that came to light in this event was, I'm going to take Lawrence Lake in particular because that's obviously where KGNC was heavily affected. That there was what we thought was 2 pumps, turned out to be one temporary and one that had just been repaired. When was the temporary pump put in there?
I don't have that exact date off the top of my head. I can provide that though later.
Okay. Speaking, so on the subject of pliers and the pumps, it was mentioned last week that possibly we were going to immediately start to look at, I believe, and forgive me Floyd, but it was referred to as the daisy chain, where we're going to stop pumping from, say, Bennett to Lawrence to wherever it was. When will we make this change? I mean, if we've learned nothing, we've learned that that's just, it's not working.
So, yeah, that where one lake pumps to another lake has been a challenge that's been identified in this. That is something we will bring to the mayor and council in the budget process. So, let's just, for example, the connection of Bennett having to pump to Lawrence, that would be a capital project that needs to be looked at in the budgeting process to have a force main such that Bennett could pump independently of Lawrence. And so I think what you just heard the mayor say is some of that infrastructure stuff is going to be a priority in the budget, and I would anticipate that to be one of the top number of projects. There'll be a couple of projects identified, but that, and then not to create that in the future, such as those permanent pumps on Playa 7 would not be planned to pump to another playa. So that approach, I think, is something that's really gleaned out of this event that it needs to be done in a better fashion.
So I think on that, it's not, the decision is not, do we want to pump those to a different location other than a lake? It's going to be providing to council the capital projects that'll have to be done, the cost estimates, the possible funding sources, timelines, things like that, for being able to pump from a playa or from somewhere like Bennett to a free-flowing channel or a creek, something like that. That would entail putting in a drainage pipeline that we could then run a pump into to be able, and also the force main to be able to make that happen too. So it'll be a lot of capital projects that we'll be discussing with council, taking guidance from council, and also talking about possible funding sources. So those are all going to be bang for the buck, value-based decisions that council's going to have to give guidance on.
Then if I can, Jared, has FEMA been involved with this at all?
They will, but they're not here right now. And part of that's the scale of the event, the size of the event, when is it going to trigger FEMA participation.
Okay. And I got one more, and this is going to be for Chief Birkenfeld. This is really kind of a tongue-in-cheek because I've heard you talk about a number of times the barricades. Look, I live and I work in the Mockingbird Paramount area. So I've seen the barricades. The water came up to my driveway, but I feel for the people that were on the other side of the street from me because they got it worse. It's going to be pretty easy to spot and discover a lot of the people that ignored the barricades because they're stuck, their vehicles are there. How do you approach that?
Well, we've tried to be as helpful as possible, but also, after a couple of days, we've written some tickets. Some folks who didn't have any business being in the area, or folks who just disregarded the barricades or moved barricades, because it's just a safety issue, and we don't want somebody to get hurt. It's also creates issue. It's bad enough that we have emergency vehicles that have to drive through there and potentially cause waves that go into homes or businesses. We don't want to amplify that by just allowing other cars to go in there as well.
Was that really the biggest, after the event, once the draining began, was that sort of one of the bigger concerns? Wasn't so much the water, but people driving in and creating the wakes?
That's one of them. There's everything from, there's potential for looting, there's potential for just general accidents that can occur from underwater hazards. So we've had really good cooperation on that. We haven't had a lot of folks disregarding those. A handful at the beginning that we warned, and then later on, after a couple of days, everybody should know by now it's time to quit driving through there. But overall, the cooperation's been great. We haven't had too many issues.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
want to thank everybody for coming. Thank our panelists taking the time out today from their work to come by and give us information. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.